Before the start of the 2015-16 US college tennis season, our new coach arrived to take over the men's and women's team. Jeff Brands not only proved to be a game-changing coach for myself, he also became a personal friend and remains so to this day. Through this friendship, I also met Jeff's then girlfriend and now wife, Shirin Tinati, and in getting to know her, I also got to know more about her remarkable story. Member of the Actors Studio in New York, professional photographer and cancer survivor, Shirin's outlook on life is truly inspirational. Shirin talked about how she faced her toughest battle, how she told the story of that battle on video, and about her life and career since thankfully winning that fight. Discovering how the various layers and events in her life have overlapped and led her to where she is today, as well as how she's being inspired by the people around her, really was something very special for me. And it's a real privilege to be able to share Shirin's story with you on One of the Eight.
You know, a lot of people think that, be strong, don't shed a tear, whatever. But when you put a coat of armor on, you're not feeling anything. I think strength is really being in the moment and owning what you're going through. Because that's the measure of a person, is being knocked down and how you get up and whether you get up, not being protected with a coat of armor that it's holding you up, but actually saying, okay, I'm a vulnerable, amazing, strong, flawed human being. And this thing is, I'm in the ring with this thing and it's knocking the crap out of me. Okay, how am I going to fight? When I fall this way, how am I going to get up? When I fall that way, how am I going to get up? When do I need to choose to stay down for a while? That's strength.
I'm Jake Worley, and this is One of the Eight, bringing you the real-life stories of real-world people, the things they have achieved and the things that have inspired them. Hi everyone, today we have the chance to hear from an artist, an actor and a conqueror, and believe it or not, that's all the same person. Our guest today, Shirin, is one of those people whose presence just kind of lights up a room and is made even more powerful when you consider some of the darkness that she's overcome. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Shirin to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
To give a little bit of context, Shirin's boyfriend at the time and now husband used to be my coach out in America, and he is still the head men's and women's tennis coach at my old university. And the relationship between a player and coach is often, it's quite difficult to get right. But when I first met Jeff, I knew straight away that I had a great coach and a friend for life. And we went for a couple of dinners together, and that's where I first met today's guest, Shirin. And it was during those meals, plus some of my coach's stories, that I first learned about Shirin and became fascinated by your story. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, you're an actor and an artist and a photographer.
Yeah. Well, I started acting in high school and fell in love with it, and that's what I pursued in college. And I was lucky enough to get professional work while I was in college. So that brought me to New York, and I acted for a few years, and it was still a love of mine. And I decided to go to graduate school and studied it and still acted. I'm a member of the Actors Studio. I'm, member of the unions, all of that. But by accident, one day I was on a photo shoot as the makeup artist, and long story very short, the photographer ended up not wanting to continue. So I picked up the camera and started shooting. And to be honest, I don't even barely recall what happened next. Within 6 months, I was a photographer. That's what I was doing for a living. And I haven't looked back since.
Wow.
Yeah, this was almost 20 years ago. So
have you've been in some films?
Yeah, I've done a couple, but nothing really notable. I've done mostly stage work. So that's been the bulk of what I've done acting wise. The most recent one I've done was a original piece directed by Estelle Parsons at the Actors Studio. And before that, I did, I still acted during these 20 years of photography because of the relationships and connections I've made. So people will ask me if I have the time and availability, then I'll be in a production. I did, at Barrow Group, I did Italian American reconciliation, and I'm still open to doing things. I just, my photography has me pretty busy, so I don't pursue it as much. But if things come to me, I definitely love being involved still.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the groups, kind of the societies, I guess if that's the right word, that you're parts of in New York, what does that involve?
The acting groups?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm a member of the Actors Studio, and the Actors Studio is it's a little bit tough to explain because it's not a school or anything like that. It's it started with a group theater, and it grew into what it is now, based on the Elia Kazan, Marlon Brando, Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams. That's where Streetcar Named Desire, that's where all of those plays were born. And it's been a group of actors, directors, and writers who basically just get together to create. And that's where, those are the legendary members now. The people who run the studio are Al Pacino and Ellen Burstyn. And it's a very difficult audition process to get in. And basically all you do is you just work. It's not about performing. It's about just, ever since, when I should know the year it started, but ever since the 40s, session has been going on twice a week, and we go,
wow.
we bring things we want to work on. We bring things we want to approach. It's a very, very tough thing to explain. It's not a paid thing. It's just, it's just an extreme honor to, my life will I'll always have that as one of the things in my life, that I'm a member of this group of actors and directors that, you kind of have to achieve a certain level of artistry to be able to be part of this group. So,
yeah, that's an impressive group of people to be in and amongst and working, contributing with.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And Jeff got a taste of it when I did the last piece. So, and he kind of became buddies with Estelle Parsons, I think. So it was.
Oh wow!
Yeah, everybody loves Jeff. Everybody kind of takes him in. So
yeah.
So
it's hard not to like Jeff.
Oh, it is. It is. And Jeff's the tennis coach that you were talking about earlier, my husband. So
yes. I had, when I was doing a little bit of research on you, it was actually, it was quite funny because when Jeff first came to the university and, we were getting to know him a little bit better, and then we found out he had a girlfriend, obviously, which was you. And one of the first things that, I don't know how they found out, one of the guys on the team said, yeah, Jeff's girlfriend, she's on IMDb. And I thought, it's kind of when Wikipedia first started, you kind of felt like you've made it if you've got your own Wikipedia page. And I guess IMDb is like, oh, wow, if they've got their own IMDb page, they must be going places. Does it feel that way to you, that you're like, I have my own page on that?
I'll be honest, it is kind of cool. But you know what? Once I started shooting, things didn't add to it as much, but yeah, listen, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh no, it's nothing. I think things are cool. And yeah, I think it's cool. A lot of people can, it's usually something that should be made for you, like a production, like you can't just go make one out of nowhere. So It was really cool. The day I found that I had one was pretty cool.
Yeah. I thought there was a funny little moment that I thought, I wonder if Shirin kind of feels what everyone thinks that must feel like. What is it about acting that you enjoy so much?
It's so funny because, this is a question one of my professors asked when I was 22. And I said, sometimes when someone asks you a question, you don't know the answer yourself until you come to say it. Like the moment you're answering it is the moment you realize yourself why. And he asked me that, and I just remembered saying immortality. I'm like, it's the only way in your one lifetime that you can genuinely experience other lifetimes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
and yeah, so, and that's what it's been. And it's like, and it's also like, kind of being like Indiana Jones and exploring, and you don't have to pay the consequences, and I don't mean
Yeah.
that to be like, in a irresponsible way, but you can really freely explore. It takes a lot of work though. A lot of people think, oh, you're pretty, you should be an actor, or, I hear that from a lot of clients. But if you genuinely master the craft, and mastering the craft is accepting that you're never going to master the craft. You're always a student. And just genuinely committing to exploring, creating, researching, tons of time back in the day in the library, and now I guess on the internet, and diving into these worlds and these experiences. There's nothing more magical. Oh God, this question's making me want to go do it again. Yeah, right after we finish this, I'm just going to go and see what I could do to dive back in. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. If you leave your vanity at the door and do it to really create a life, then it's pretty spectacular.
Wow, yeah, that's a really fascinating way of looking. I've never even considered it that way. It's interesting. So separate to your acting, you're also, I mean, from a non-biased perspective, an incredibly talented photographer.
Oh,
and it's fair to say you specialize in, it's headshots and dancers?
Yeah. The headshots, actors and dancers, but the last few years, ever since my book, just people, I just love capturing people. But when it comes to a career that supported me, up until recently, it's been actors, dancers, authors, musicians, singers, so performers. Yeah.
Okay, and what are the clients? What do they come to you for? I mean, before I kind of knew a little bit about what you do, I wouldn't understand
what they need,
kind of what the headshot involves, really.
Okay, well, whenever you're a performer, you have to go and audition to get work. So whether it's an open call where they put it in the trade magazine that they're looking for certain type of singer, certain type of actor, and you have to submit a photo. And that photo is the photo I take. And they have to send a photo that really is engaging, that really shows off a side of you, because you have to understand that hundreds of photos get sent in for each role, for every audition. So every role and every audition. So you're looking at hundreds of photos. So, they have to stand out. They have to have a sense of vulnerability to them. So that's what I take. And it's gotten much more intricate now, because back in the day when everything was on film and it wasn't so much the digital age, you only needed one, and you would print it on film, and then you would make copies of that one, and you hand deliver it or hand send it for these auditions. You put it in an envelope, old fashioned way. But now, because everything is a digital submission, each actor needs a lot of different ones, so it's a much more, the job has definitely become much more faceted, for different, because one person can play so many different roles, and you have to figure out what's the range of the actor. And then you're like, okay, let me design a shoot that's going to represent him in all these ways, so he gets called in for specific auditions that he would be good for.
Okay. With the dancers, what is it that what do they come to you looking for? What is it that you're trying to capture for them?
Dance, it's interesting because it's a newer thing. I started shooting them before it was a thing, whenever I had an actor who danced. But now what I find that's really important for dancers to capture is the charisma, in their movement. And it's,
yes.
Because if a dancer goes on a dance call, they have to, like if an actor goes on a audition, they can bring their monologue, they can bring the thing that they specialize in. But with a dancer, they have to literally go and dance that routine that they have planned for them, right? So they have no way to show anything that they do on their own. But in that photo, we can capture a sense of cheekiness, character, sophistication, because I'll capture them in either a posture or a leap or any kind of execution of movement that really brings out their personality. And we style it and we make it almost like a still from a film.
I mean, that's one thing I would say is the most kind of obvious first thing I notice with your photography is that you've got this kind of amazing ability to catch
thank you.
movement and energy in these photos. I guess that, I mean, how have you kind of learned these skills to be able to do that?
You know, I was a director and that's what I studied in school, and acting and directing. And looking back in hindsight, I've been obsessed with photos. Like even as a teenager, I'd go to someone's house. I'd want to look at their family albums, and, you know, that could sound kind of creepy, but I don't know. I was always fascinated. And when I was directing plays in college, you know, this was actually very expensive. This was back in the film days. I would do 1 hour photo while my cast was rehearsing. I would take stills. Because I wanted to capture moments that I would otherwise miss if, you know, I didn't shoot it.
Okay.
So all my money went to 1 hour photos to develop those rolls of film, and I'd look through them. So, you know, I don't plan a shoot. You know, when I started shooting, I directed the actor like a director. And I think that's how I still do it. I don't pose people. I don't say, oh, okay, give me a smile this way. You know, I direct them and I just capture. And it's, I guess there's skill, but I don't think I'd be able to tell you exactly, okay, first I do this, then I do that. I just connect with a story,
right? Okay.
And I direct the story, and the images, I guess, are a byproduct of that.
And the what's the book that you mentioned? What's that?
I published a book when I was sick with cancer. I actually started it when I was sick, and it was finished a year after my recovery. So, and I come from a family where no one has ever had anything.
Yes.
You know, no one has had cancer, died, nothing.
Okay.
And I was, you know, I was an athlete. I was actually heavy in doing triathlons at the time. I never smoke, barely drink, you know, just eat very healthy. So it was a big shock. And I'm never, you know, I always explain to people, including Jeff, that it was like I was standing facing the ocean. And it was this beautiful, beautiful sunny day in a calm ocean. And I turned my back, and seconds later, a tidal wave knocked me down. It was that, you know, it was really, really unsettling. And then we went on the hunt for a surgeon. You know, we just didn't know what to do. So we just started following advice of go see this person, go see that person. And when we went to this one surgeon's office, and we were, waiting for her to call us in, and we saw a photo book on the table in the waiting room, and it was just awful. It was somebody who had no connection to breast cancer, and it was a gentleman, and this isn't anything against men, but it was significant in this because it was just the photo book where the subject was women with mastectomy scars. And it, you know, all power to anyone who wants to express themselves in any way, shape, or form. But the images were horrific. They were gritty and edgy, and they were, the women weren't flattering. They looked defeated. And I got physically sick looking at them. And I do think the women were exploited in this book. That's my opinion. And I never thought I'm going to do a book. And then, you know, the weeks went on, and my, you know, figuring out what to do was falling into place. And then this woman, while I was about to start getting chemo, this woman was really trying to be nice, and she was lovely. She said, you know, honey, don't worry. In a year, we're going to welcome you into the Sisterhood of Survivors. We'll celebrate that. You'll be a survivor. And I thought to myself, what if I don't survive? You know, I have to wait to survive to be celebrated.
Yeah.
We don't celebrate now, you know, and a lot of women actually die, and a lot of women. So survival is measuring whether we get to celebrate ourselves. And that always sat wrong with me, because you have a lot of women who fight like gladiators and they don't survive. And you have other women, you know, unfortunately, they feel sorry for themselves. They just do nothing and they do survive, that shouldn't be a mark of valor. Survival or not has nothing to do with that. So all these thoughts created a spark of me one day saying, okay, you know what? And it was during chemo, it hit me. I was really out of it because they give you this thing to kind of relax you. And I'm like, oh God, I need to make a book. And I'm like, I need to make the book I needed that day when I was in the doctor's office. So, and it immediately came to me that I want to photograph a book of women who are in treatment, because that's what women like me and other women like me would respond to, because we can't see further ahead as survivors. So I created a book called I Am Warrior, and it is women in certain stages of treatment during cancer. And I depicted them as literary, historical, mythical warriors. So it's a very interesting book.
Wow.
You meet them as themselves, and then it's visual.
Is it all visual
and written. I wanted my opinion, any art, the purpose of any art is connection. Art is I don't believe in shock art. I don't believe in, look at how creative I could be. I think the purpose of all art is to make people connect and not feel alone. So the first thing, it wasn't very creative writing, because the first page of each character, of each woman, I asked them the same questions, So these are questions that the answers might help someone else. And then the second page, where they're depicted as warriors, is basically the most difficult book report that I hated in high school. I had to do 22 of them. It's basically for you to learn about the warrior that they're representing. But it was really interesting. I still, I forget what I researched, and I'll go and I'll flip through it, and I'm like, oh my God, this warrior was so cool. So that's what it is.
I mean, one thing that obviously what you were diagnosed with obviously is it's the worst thing I'd imagine possible in life. It's one of the toughest things anyone can ever go through. But you actually started a video blog at the time, kind of depicting the journey from that horrible kind of moment of being diagnosed to your incredible end result of overcoming it. And I watched through your videos, and the one thing, and I mean, I think it's a combination of things to watch. It's an incredibly hard watch to see kind of the changes that happen to you, both physically and mentally. But it's also one of the most inspiring things to watch. And there was one thing that I noticed you said in the first video where you kind of announced it to people. You said, this part of my life I'm going to live out loud.
When I got diagnosed, I saw a lot of different things on YouTube, because we all are looking for inspiration. And most of what I saw was either overly sugary, like women acting like, oh, everything's fine. Like I saw this woman who was obviously in treatment, doing trapeze and, things like that, like life is just normal. And that made me feel like, okay, that if I can't do that, does that mean I'm going to die if I can't go do a trapeze act? Or it was very grotesque and very dark, which made me scared. So I figured, look, I'm in an industry where, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in corporate America. It's okay if people know that I'm sick, and I don't have any children, and I don't have any, like my life is in the perfect position where I can honestly share what I'm going through without going for the shock, or without trying to show, look at how beautiful cancer can be. You know what I mean? I could be genuinely honest, and it's not going to affect my kids.
Yes.
It's not going to affect my job. So I thought that was actually kind of my duty, because I had the luxury to be able to show it. And that's what the choice was about.
And there's a moment, I'm going to kind of walk you through things that I saw that just amazed me as I went through it. The next thing that I saw was, you had hold of a camera in one of the videos, and you said, this thing right here is going to be my greatest medicine. And did you find that photography did it did it act as a distraction, I guess, or was it something that you felt was truly making a difference?
I knew it was because when I made that video, I had already been diagnosed. I just wanted to wait until I knew how bad it was and what the course of treatment was going to be. And, I remember at the very beginning thinking, if I can't work, I can't breathe, and the oncologist I said, can I work? And it felt like forever. And I was so nervous to ask that question, and she's like, no, you can, I want you to work. You love what you do. It's going to really, really help. So it was, I guess I thought it would be a good distraction, and at times it was. But what it did was, because I would get really sick. The one thing I had to do is as soon as I worked, I had to go to bed. I couldn't, even if I felt okay, I couldn't leave. I couldn't go out. I couldn't do anything else. But it made me realize how much I love my job, because here I was, bald. Your skin hurts when you're on chemo. Like if the wind blows on it, it like hurts. It's not a very comfortable situation. I did some of my best work. And at the end of every shoot, I'm like, God, I love my job. God, this is what I was meant to do, because I couldn't imagine being, when you first get diagnosed and you see what your course of treatment is going to be, you don't think that you're going to be excited to go to work during this time. But I would get excited. It was something wonderful to have in your life still, that the cancer and the illness became a part of my life, didn't become my life, because I still worked and I got to interact with people and I got to create moments for people. And so it was just this difficult thing that was a part of my life. It wasn't all of it. So working, and it was a constant reminder that this cancer isn't defining you. You're a photographer, you're a friend, but it was my medicine. It was my mentor. It was, it was like a guiding spirit of some sort. I think no matter how comfortable like a bed could be or your surroundings could be, when your soul is what your heart needs comfort first.
And I guess, this is something that's just, to overcome mentally just as well as physically. It's an equal challenge, I would think. And you said in one of your videos, the only way to get over discomfort is to live in it.
You see movies growing up and you hear stories of people crying in the bathroom when they finally have to shave it off. And I just, when I found out I was going to lose my hair, I don't know if you saw photos, but I had like big, huge JLo hair down to the middle of, past the middle of my back. And
yes, I did.
When I heard that, I started the goodbye process then. And it was, of course, it's devastating. And it's just devastating. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this alone, crying in a bathroom, or have a friend shave it over the sink. This is something I have to face. So, and you have no choice. The most difficult part of the cancer was you didn't have a say in any of it. And I didn't have a say in whether I was going to lose my hair or not. This is happening to me. So I really was searching for things that I had to say, and I had a say in how I did it. Let's turn this into a party. And I want people laughing, and, of course people were laughing and crying, but I want people by my side celebrating my life as I do this.
Yeah, it's an incredible video. I mean, for our listeners, that to watch it is just, it really makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And one thing you said yes, it's important to give yourself permission to kick and scream and cry. And cry your way through, because that's what strong people do. They own their emotion. They own up to their feeling. And I guess you truly did that here. When I got
sick, I set an alarm on my phone at the very beginning. And I said, okay, you could do whatever you want for these 2 days. You can break dishes, you can scream, you can eat all the Haagen-Dazs in the world that you want. But once this alarm goes off, you need to get up and figure this out. What are you going to do? What's your role? And, and it's, it's easy a lot of people think that, oh, be strong, don't shed a tear, whatever. But when you put a coat of armor on, you're not feeling anything. I think strength is really being in the moment and owning what you're going through, because that's the measure of a person, is being knocked down and how you get up and whether you get up, not being protected with a coat of armor that it's holding you up, but actually saying, okay, I'm a vulnerable, amazing, strong, flawed human being. And this thing is, I'm in the ring with this thing and it's knocking the crap out of me. Okay, how am I going to fight? When I fall this way, how am I going to get up? When I fall that way, how am I going to get up? When do I need to choose to stay down for a while? That's strength. I have so many amazing people in my life, and my life isn't just about me. There are people who love me. There are people who would be affected by me not surviving, by me suffering. You owe it to everyone in your life to take care of yourself. It's really, the other thing, this is something that happened that actually set me on my course. I had a friend who got sick a year before I did. And she turned into this selfish, it was just, she just was miserable to be around. And she was this person I love very much and wonderful heart.
Right.
But she came and she made everybody just like bow down to her. And she kept saying things like, why me? Why not her? I'm a better person than her. I was in shock, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why? Like, this bitterness and ugliness came out. And this was a person I loved, and I thought very highly of. And Jake, I'm not lying. The moment I got the diagnosis, my first fear wasn't dying. My first fear was, oh my God, am I going to turn into her? And that made me realize that, you know what?
Wow.
I owe it to the women in my life to set a good example, because I don't want, if God forbid somebody else someone in my circle gets sick, I don't want them to be like, oh my God, am I going to turn into that? I want them to be like, oh, she did it, I can do it too.
Right. I mean, this is all part of, I'm always fascinated kind of trying to understand the people that we get on here, trying to understand their thought process kind of whilst they're going through the struggles that they've gone through. And I think probably the video I was most fascinated by is the one that you titled Dear Body, I Love You. I think it'd be very easy, I guess, to kind of be angry at the situation and be angry at your body, but instead you turned it in an opportunity to show yourself more love.
It's still, it really makes you realize how hard you are on yourself, of aging, of your weight, of what you can do that you no longer could do. It's almost like you put this pressure on yourself and on your body. And when you go through something like this, you start to see it as a different thing. It's like you're two beings, you're your body and your soul. And you're like, wow, I was watching my body like physically fall apart, but I kind of got to have this out of body experience and watch how valiantly it was fighting, and I was like, wow, you're saving my life. You're literally saving the life of my soul, I guess. So it really, I still, in my opinion, surviving cancer or surviving any kind of horrific thing doesn't give you rose-colored glasses. Oh, now you know what the true meaning of life is. No, I'm still a human being with insecurities, with rage, with love, with all of that stuff. But I keep going back to that. And whenever I'm not on center as I would like to be, I'll go back and say, okay, you know what? You need to ease up on yourself. Look at what you did. Look at what the body did. Look at what the human body's capable of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic way to look at it. And the good news is you have managed to get through it and come out the other side, all guns blazing.
Thank you.
So congratulations
I'm
for
lucky.
that. Another thing I'd like to touch on is, I remember we went for dinner at an Asian restaurant in New Jersey one day, and you and Jeff were telling me about this place in France that you go to, and I was just absolutely blown away behind kind of the science of this place.
I have a very rare disease that was a result of the radiation treatment I had to have for cancer. And basically about 2-3 years after the cancer, after my recovery, and we didn't know what it was, but it looked like a bruise on my leg. And we just thought it was a bruise, and I'm clumsy, and that's what it is. But it wasn't fading. So, and it took a while for them to diagnose it. Basically, my body all of a sudden freaked out, and it thinks that my body is still being radiated. Now, I was only radiated in the chest area, but it's attacking like my legs, my back, my arms, you know. It's so when there's nothing there to kill, it starts killing the tissue. So it's a skin disease. It's a type of scleroderma, but that's why it's rare, because all of a sudden it's just thinking that it's the entire body is being attacked instead of just that region. So I didn't want to take the medication, the only medication to, there's no cure, to manage it, because it was a chemo pill that you take for the rest of your life. And the doctor, all of a sudden at Sloan Kettering in New York, he's like, wait, do you want to go to France? And I'm like, what do you mean? Do I want to go to France? What are you talking? And I'm just like, you just basically told me my skin is being eaten away. And then, you know, so then he explained what it was, and I'll try to make this really brief. He's like, look, it's natural. It's in a beautiful place. And at the very least, you'll have a really great time. You know, you'll be really relaxed. So, I decided not to look into it too much, because I can be skeptical. But so I got approved to go. They've been looking for someone. The disease is called radiation-induced morphia, which is what I explained to you. The body all of a sudden freaked out, and it's attacking the skin. And so I went, and basically it's a place where there's a spring, and it was discovered in the 1700s by a royal person, and had a horse who was sick with lesions. The horse drank out of this spring and was cured. Now, this place has been a treatment center since then, after that happened. And in the 60s, a billionaire named Pierre Fabre bought it and made it what it is now. And it's medically proven to treat all these skin disorders, medically proven. And this is the next disease they were trying to see if it could help manage. So basically it's a spring, and it's basically rainwater that travels 50 to 75 years underground, or wherever the area it goes, it picks up certain minerals, a certain blend of minerals and microbes that literally helps build new skin, or the inside lining of your stomach. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
My God.
It's proven to cure and treat eczema, psoriasis, atopic dermatitis. There was this very famous woman, marathoner, an ultra marathoner from Australia, who got caught in a brush fire, and something like over 60% of her body was burned. She goes there. It softens scars. It's life-changing for people. And all it is, and it's hard to tell people because they roll their eyes, or they say, oh yeah, I went somewhere like that in Arizona. And I want to scream and say, no, there's nowhere like this in the world. Trust me. It's you start off in a bath with the water directly from the spring. You get massaged with the water from this spring. Everybody has a different prescription of what they do, but it's from the water coming from the spring. It's not even in a tank. I get I feel like a prisoner of war, because for some of my lesions, I go into this tiled room and the doctor hoses me down with high pressure jets. So it's if it wasn't inappropriate, I would have someone film it, because it's so funny, because I'm shivering in the corner with these fire hoses of this water. And it just, to me, the visual, it seems so funny. But they're some of the best dermatologists and surgeons and medical doctors from the entire world who come and treat patients here.
Sounds like something from a film.
I should have sent you my blog. I wrote a blog the first year I was there. The first day I got there, I was exhausted. But the second day I woke up and I was cracking up, and I'm like, oh, come on, this isn't real. It looked like a fantasy world. It just looked like something that you couldn't imagine exists. I went for 3 years, 1 month every year. And while I was there last summer, they hired me to do some photos, and I negotiated some more treatment out of it. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to pay me. Just, I would like to keep filming. So.
Okay. It was funny. I always remember, it was such a lovely thing Jeff said that, he told me that you had, 3 years of this trial period, but he told you that he made a promise to you that he would always make sure you could go every year.
Yes,
and I thought that was such a lovely thing, but you've managed to figure something out, so congrats on that as well.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I have a great husband.
Something we always do here on our podcast, we get our one of the 8 guests to share something with us that has inspired them. Sometimes it's a person or a book or a moment. So we'd like to know, Shirin, what has inspired you?
So many things. Well, there's always the one person who inspired me the most.
Okay, who's that?
And so I'll tell you a couple. The most inspiring person for me ever since I was young is she was a figure she lived during Nazi Germany. Her name is Miep Geist.
Okay.
And she's the secretary. She helped hide the Frank family.
Wow.
And she is Christian, German, and what she said always stuck with me. She said that she never allowed anyone to call her a hero.
Wow. Because
she said what she did was not heroic. Because to call what she did heroic is saying that other people couldn't do it. You know what I mean? It's human. It's what is in all of us to do. And that always stayed with me, because the human thing to do is not heroic.
Yeah.
So she always was kind of like that compass for me. That thing she said when I read the book and I read that in high school. So she's just has been kind of my guiding light ever since. The other people that inspire me the most are the people I photograph.
Okay.
Because, I'm really blessed having the most incredible people come in front of my lens. And when I see these, these individuals who are really closed off and they come in with all of their insecurities intact and almost like there's all these layers of things that need to come down for me to get that magical photo, and watching them get there. I mean, sure, I provide a nurturing environment, but it's their choice. And these people just open up and share things with me, just like, you look at my journey as being something extraordinary. You don't know how many people like that I meet every month. And you look at them and they're beautiful, or what you would think they're perfect looking, or their life seems idyllic, and you see what they've been through and owning it. And, my clients throughout the years share so much with me, and you get to see the grace with which they live their lives and the choices they make. So it's my job. My career is a consistent infusion of inspiration from the people who walk into my studio.
Wow.
So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that in a nutshell.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing a little bit about your life with us. I don't think it's possible to put everything that you are and have done into an hour's podcast, but I hope that we can try and get a good little snippet there of kind of who you are and just kind of the inspiring way that you exist.
Thank you. It's such an honor that you asked me, and I think what you're doing is so wonderful. So thank you for making this.
There's some crazy times, aren't there, in the world, and if you can come up with something that tries to brighten people's day a little bit, then we're all for it.
Well, you know what? Then allow me to add to my inspirational list, sir. You are one of them.
Oh, thank you. Well, honestly, Shirin, thank you so much.
Okay, honey. You have a wonderful day, and reach out if there's anything else you need.
There are almost 8 billion people on our planet. and Shirin Tinati is one of the 8. You can find links to Shirin's work and the things that have inspired her online at oneofthe8.com.
Everyone has a story to share. Everyone has something to give. Everyone can inspire. One of the 8 is a movement of real-world people from across the globe, sharing real-life stories, inspiring others, enriching lives, and giving something back. I am, you are, everyone is one of the 8. Now streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Join the movement at oneofthe8.com.